Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for my team selector ahead of the game tomorrow night at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea versus Man United. It's a massive game. It probably is the biggest game of Graham Potter's reign so far, or the sternest test against a really informed side, a side that has beaten other top six teams so far this season. I think we'll come to Stamford Bridge not only with belief in what they're going to try and do tomorrow, belief in their methods, some players who are really in form, but just a fearlessness I think about United at the moment, and that is dangerous. It really is for Chelsea, who, I think generally have been quite good under Graham Potter so far, and I think there's been a lot of positives. There's been more pros than cons so far, absolutely, and it is very early on into his reign. But in the last two games, I think there have been slight concerns over Chelsea's ability maybe to be overwhelmed at times if a team plays quite direct, and just seeing how without Reece James, I think that's my biggest tactical question on the right side of Chelsea's defence, and this is going to be a question we have pretty much until the World Cup, until Reece James gets fit again. How do you counteract and try and nullify the speed that I think United will want to play with in transition tomorrow? And when you don't have Reece James, when you have a player like Marcus Rashford, who even if he's playing as a centre-forward, likes to drift onto that left side. I mean, Jadon Sancho played there the other night. It's going to be a real challenge for Chelsea. And I think Potter trying to navigate that and trying to tactically set up Chelsea where we can be balanced, we can try and get on the ball, we can try and push United back. Some of those things that are absolutely traits in Potter's game. He wants to control possession, he wants to control the game. That is Chelsea's kind of natural instinct. But you also have to have that defensive solidity. When we've got Reece James, you trust him against kind of any attacker one-on-one. Of course, it's a different story now. He is injured, and kind of seeing how we counteract that, because there have been some concerns defensively. I mean, Kepa has been our man of the match probably in the last two games, and that isn't always a great sign considering the type of quality of chances we are giving up. And I don't think we're going to be able to do that against Man United and come away with another clean sheet. I mean, I may be proven wrong. Kepa may just never concede a goal again, but that's highly unlikely. So obviously things need to be shored up, as well as Chelsea trying to find a way past the Man United defence that I think has improved. They had the one game against Man City, which, obviously they got monstered in, but I think a lot of teams are going to have to suffer through that this year, especially when Haaland's having a day like that. So for me tomorrow, really interesting tactical battle. Make sure, guys, before we do get into looking at Man United specifically, and then we'll get into Chelsea and my predicted lineup, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. If you are enjoying the content, hit that like button too, because it helps new people find the channel as well. We're firmly on the road to 30k subscribers, so help me get there, hopefully by Christmas at least. I think that'd be a really nice landmark for the channel. But let's get into Man United. So they sit 1 point below Chelsea in the table after Chelsea drew against Brentford on Wednesday and they beat Spurs. It continues a really good run for Ten Hag against big teams at Old Trafford. They've already beaten Liverpool, they've beaten Arsenal, and now they've beaten Spurs. A really convincing 2-0 win. It's kind of a trend as well for Antonio Conte and Spurs. They are consistently getting outplayed when they play other big teams, and that's a concern for them, but obviously not relevant to this game. Just thinking about Man United and how they're going to approach this game, I think it won't be the same as Wednesday, particularly because Spurs are a team that like to kind of surrender the initiative on the ball to other teams. You see this a lot. You saw this at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea. You saw this at the Emirates against Arsenal. And of course, you saw it on Wednesday too. I mean, it was kind of like a Scott Saunders from 90 Min, who's a Man United fan, was sort of joking it. It was kind of like a back 11, effectively, just sitting back, waiting for things to happen. That's kind of the way Spurs play. I don't think it's quite progressive. But United were quite impressive to get around that, because I think they have struggled at times, a bit like Chelsea, when teams do not press them. But they got around that, they really did, and they won convincingly, and it would be such a morale boosting win for Ten Hag for what he's doing currently. But I do think this game is going to be a lot more about them doing what they did against Liverpool and Arsenal, which is trying to hit Chelsea on the break, trying to use the speed of Jadon Sancho in transition, who's obviously really dangerous at that. Marcus Rashford, I think in particular, has been one of the standout players for Man United, particularly because he was so good a few years ago, and just seeing over the past, I guess, 15, 18 months, him really dwindle, him not really progress as a player, kind of wondering what his career is going to be after it started so high, breaking through at United. I think he's back to that level now, and I think it's because it's a system that very much is suiting him. Kind of a similar record to Chelsea so far this season, not only in terms of league form, but their recent form, winning 4 of their last 5. A few of those wins have come in the Europa League against teams you fully expect them to beat. The 4-2-3-1 for Erik Ten Hag so far this season, he has really settled on a back 4, and he's really settled on kind of a starting 11. I mean, even in the Europa League games, he's not doing a ton of rotation, which could hurt United in the long term with fatigue. But Diego Dallo has come in and is having his best season for for Man United. Varane and Martinez have formed a great partnership. I think technically on the ball, they're quite proficient for a team who wants to control possession, but just I think the way they were, how frantic they were without those two players, how disorganised it's been at times for Man United across the pitch, but particularly in the back four, those have really improved the structure of the team. Luke Shaw kind of battling with Malacia, he's regained his place again. Fred and Casemiro was the double six on Wednesday. I'm not sure if it's still going to be that, because we have seen Christian Eriksen play a lot this season, and of course his passing from deep can really unlock defences. And again, I just wonder, it's something he tried Ten Hag in some of those early big games, which worked, but then he really got pressed and hurt against Man City. I wonder how he's going to go with that. I mean, Casemiro I think is a really good signing, really experienced player. Fred is one of those players who's maybe a little bit underrated. I mean, he can be quite erratic. He scored the other night. He does have that knack every now and then of scoring a goal. But he kind of can bring energy to a team, particularly one who wants to press a lot. And that's, I think, what Man United are getting from him. Anthony, I think, has been a little bit erratic, but has scored some good goals. So maybe he keeps his place. Bruno Fernandes, he gets a lot of stick, and I can understand why, and his performances can dip significantly, but he's still a highly effective player. He really is. He is just such a dangerous player. He's one of these players that just has a knack. I think, we can criticise Chelsea players for not having a knack of knowing where to be or just output consistently. Fernandes hasn't been as brilliant as he was in the first 6 or 7 months at Man United, but I still think he's one of those players that is quite inspirational, I think, for the rest of his teammates, and particularly with the way United want to attack some of those passes, and particularly you want him as close to the goal where he can finish chances inside the box. So he's going to be a danger. Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford, I fully expect to start this game. Sancho's had a better start to the year. So I think that's going to be it. I think it is going to be trying to hit Chelsea on the break and sitting quite deep, trying to soak up that pressure and then release the ball quickly. And it's how Chelsea are going to try and counteract that I think is going to be quite interesting. I think mainly the game is going to be won and lost in central midfield and also on the left side of United's attack, right side of Chelsea's defence. I think if Chelsea can answer those two questions, I think we've got a great chance of winning this game. If we can't, then I think it could be a tricky night for Graham Potter. I really do, because they're in sync at the moment. They're in confidence, United, and I think there's a fearless nature to them coming to Stamford Bridge, because some United fans probably after those first two games were kind of thinking, what the hell have we got in store this season? And maybe now there's a sense that it's kind of a bit of a free hit based on the results they've got so far. So we will see how that plays out. And obviously, no Cristiano Ronaldo, which I think has really helped them tactically. And he just kind of, no part in this game, refused to come on as a sub on Wednesday. Just really bad behaviour. And it just kind of sums up over the summer why I was so against Chelsea trying to sign Cristiano Ronaldo, because this is it. Tactically, he's I think doesn't work at the top level with teams who really want to press, which is Chelsea as well. And he's really taking away from United's success. So I think you've got to give some respect for Ten Hag for making that decision, and I think being backed by the club for it. So we'll see how that develops. Let's move on to Chelsea now. Graham Potter, the one kind of concern over the midweek game was Gallagher going off. It was illness, actually. It wasn't an injury. I said on my review, it was quite curious, how he went off so early. But he's back fit after illness, so we'll see if he features tomorrow. I think the big thing for me about this game is, I'm going to use the word meritocracy because I have written about this at Football London, and in the case of Christian Pulisic, who, as you can see behind me, is on the thumbnail today, because Potter's done a lot of rotating. I think he's made about 25 changes to each of every starting 11. It racks up to 25 changes each game. We know Potter did this at Brighton. It's kind of the way he goes about things. Sometimes it can be as high as 7 against Wolves. It can be a little bit less, 3. I think it was 5 the other night. So you wouldn't be surprised if, again, we're in the territory of 3 to 5 changes for this game. But I feel like there needs to be, and this is where his smart management really needs to come in, is having a sense that there is a meritocracy at Chelsea where players who, like Christian Pulisic, I think played well and scored against Wolves, doesn't play for the next 2 or 3 games. Chelsea win those games, so it's not a massive talking point, but he comes off the bench against Brentford and I think really makes an impact. Does he get the start off the back of that? And that's a big question, I think, generally for Potter, is that despite all this kind of liberal rotation and bringing players in and out, and tactically there are reasons behind why he does it, dependent on the opponent and what the game plan is and kind of problem solving. I do still think to kind of motivate those players and to keep them on board, there needs to be a sense that players can get back into the team. I think that was one of the things that, really hurt Thomas Tuchel in the end, or at least the reporting around his exit was that in the squad internally, there was kind of a frustration from those fringe players that there wasn't kind of a clear plan of how they were going to get back into the team. So we will see if Christian Pulisic starts tomorrow, and he features in one of my predicted teams. I think, again, the right side is just such a big question mark. I mean, do we see Loftus-Cheek play there? Do we see Cesar Azpilicueta? Do we see just a change to a back four? I think with the way the back three of Koulibaly, Silva and Chalobah have been playing, I would stick with that. And I think, as you can see with my first lineup here, I'm mainly going to go for a 3-4-3. I think there may be similarities in approach to the way Potter lined up against AC Milan. Listen, I think Man United are in better shape and have probably a better quality or informed players than AC Milan did when we faced them. But maybe there is that sense you are coming up against a similar type of formation. You've got a threat down the left that you need to try and nullify, but you don't have Reece James. But I do think this is a formation that it suits the players very well. It's going to be a tense, big game, and maybe just that sense of leaning on the experience of this squad generally in this type of setup. I'm split between what you do on that right side. I don't think there's a simple solution at the moment, but I'm going to go with Cesar Azpilicueta as the right wing back. Just something a little bit more defensive, and of course you've got the cover of Trevor Chalobah behind there, and I do think that Mason Mount may be on that right side as well as kind of a trio. Is a hard-working sort of trio you can maybe trust to help Chelsea in that aspect, and see how it develops, because I'd prefer to have Loftus-Cheek in central midfield, because I do have concerns with a midfield three for United of Fernandes, Casemiro, Fred, maybe Eriksen in there as well alongside Casemiro, could overwhelm Chelsea. And I just think Ruben has just looked better for me in central midfield rather than right wing back so far for Graham Potter. I think it worked with Thomas Tuchel, but you've got to remember a lot of the time when Loftus-Cheek was playing as a right wing back for Tuchel, he had Reece James behind him, and I think there was the cover there. We don't have that now, so I'd prefer Ruben, where he played so well against AC Milan. I'd have him in central midfield. So Koulibaly, Silva, Chalobah, of course Kepa keeps his place. Kovacic, again, I'm just looking for more mobility in this game. I think high energy. Kovacic instead of Jorginho. Ben Chilwell got a full rest but no injury against Brentford, so I think he'll come back into this game as left wing back, really provide that threat down the left side. The front three is where I think there'll be most debate of who should be starting. I think Mount obviously is going to start this game. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang I think should be starting this game. Breuer showed some good signs, but I think Aubameyang is the player you want in a game of probably limited chances maybe for Chelsea. Raheem Sterling again I think is a big game player, but I think Christian Pulisic I'd like to see start this game, because I just don't think Sterling has offered enough in recent performances. But I do think, as you'll see with my second lineup here, I think it may actually look a little bit more like this as sort of a starting lineup where Mount is kind of playing more as a number 10 and kind of as a right winger, just maybe to add an extra body in central midfield. We know Mount has done this consistently, and he really offers protection there, and particularly with just maybe trying to add some more energy, more legs, trying to connect the midfield to the attack a little bit more, which Mount does so well, picking up sort of those half spaces as you'd call them. And then you can kind of have Pulisic and Aubameyang as kind of a split front two. Pulisic did start on the right against Brentford. Whether he starts there again, he started on the left against Wolves. So curious to see. I still think the left is obviously, I think, his strongest area. So if we're going to start him anywhere, I'd start him on the left wing personally. Those are my two lineups. Let me know yours in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on everything about the game. How do you think it will go? Do you think there are any sort of surprises Graham Potter's got up his sleeve that he's going to put in the lineup tomorrow? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.